I'm going to demonstrate the FASTDRAW strategy for algebra. FASTDRAW strategy is a math reasoning strategy that combines cognitive and metacognitive elements to support successful math problem solving. The F in the acrostic stands for find what you are solving for. A stands for ask yourself what information is given. S stands for set up the equation. T stands for take the equation and solve it. Now, if after the T part of the acrostic you still haven't solved it, then you would go on to the draw portion. And D is discover the sign, read the problem, answer the equation or draw and check, and W, write the answer for the problem. Now, I'm going to go into more detail on how this strategy would be taught. And I'm just going to keep it short, I'm just going to go through the FAST portion of this strategy. Here's the problem that I'm going to go through with my students for this lesson. Now, before I would go through this problem, I would of course have done an overview of the strategy and explained to students why it would help them be successful in solving problems. So clearly, there is a lot of math vocabulary here that a student has to understand. For instance, they have to understand the units degrees Fahrenheit. They have to understand that both of these temperatures are in the same units. They have to understand, of course, the word temperature. And they have to understand the important word here, higher. They also would have to understand the word record. So vocabulary, again, would be important for me to work with the students on before attempting a problem like this. The first step of the process is find, and I am supposed to find what I am looking for, what I am solving for. So I'm going to look for a question mark. So here I see a question mark, and I'm going to underline what information tells me what I'm solving for. So what temperature did Carl record? So I'm trying to solve for the temperature that Carl recorded. Now I want to name the variable, what I'm solving for. Well, I'm solving for the temperature that Carl recorded. Let's give that variable the letter C. So C equals the temperature Carl records. In the second step of the strategy, I have to ask myself what information is given. So I'm going to read each sentence quietly, then I'm going to read it out loud, and then I'm going to find the number phrases and circle them. So Brian recorded a temperature of 37 degrees Fahrenheit, and Carl recorded a temperature of 52 degrees higher. What temperature did Carl record? So I look at the problem, and now I have to find number phrases and circle them. So I have Brian recorded a temperature of 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Carl recorded a temperature of 52 degrees higher. So I have two number phrases there. Now I have to ask myself at this point, ask again, if I understand the problem, and I'm only going to proceed if I understand. If I don't understand the problem, at this point, I'm going to go back and read it again and think about how this problem relates to other problems that I've had, or try and figure out if there's words in this problem that I just don't understand and need help with. In the set up the equation step, I'm going to take the number phrases that I've circled and I'm going to use them to help me set up an equation. So in the first number phrase, I have Brian recorded a temperature of 37 degrees Fahrenheit. So how about I set up a variable to represent Brian's recorded temperature? So because his name is Brian, I'm going to set up B equals 37 degrees Fahrenheit. From the second number phrase, right here, I can say Carl recorded a temperature 52 degrees higher. And the important word here is higher. And higher means addition. It means add on. So Carl's temperature, we already said, was equal to C. So what if I say C equals whatever Brian's temperature was plus 52 degrees Fahrenheit. This equation means that Carl's temperature has to be 52 degrees higher than Brian's temperature. So now I have my equations set up. The last step of the FAST strategy is to take the equation and solve it. So we have the equation C equals B plus 52 degrees F, and B can be substituted with the number 37 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll do that here. And we can then solve this equation for C. So we have to think back to our first step where we came up with the variable that we were solving for. That is C. We can look at this equation and say, okay, can I solve this? And yes, you can solve it. It's a simple addition problem. So you can use your calculator or you can add it by lining it up. I like to line it up, 52 plus 37. And you can always just work it in the margin. 2 plus 7 is 9. 5 plus 3 is 8. So we have 89. So I can solve for C equals 89. And I always make sure I show the units, 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, before I move on, before I say I'm finished, I have to look back and make sure that the solution I have makes sense. So we know that Carl's temperature has to be higher than Brian's temperature. And we should say to ourselves, is 89 degrees higher than 37 degrees? Yes, it is. So our answer makes sense, and we will box our answer to show that that is our final answer. If you still cannot solve the problem, then begin using the draw portion of the strategy. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go over that today. Thank you for listening.